beginning later this morning for Senator Lieberman in Washington. The security here and on Capitol Hill is intense for Benjamin Netanyahu's 2 o'clock speech to the Congress. The White House briefing is also currently scheduled for 2 o'clock. President Biden's Oval Office address, 8 o'clock Eastern. Vice President Harris is in Indianapolis today for an afternoon event, and Donald Trump, 6 p.m. in Charlotte for his first rally in this era. And we're going to start there. We're going to talk about hopefully all of those events, but certainly Trump and Biden and Harris. And guys, I want to start with the Trump event. There's been a million discussions over the last several years. Which Donald Trump will show up? Will he stay on proper? Will he be disciplined? I think tonight, given what's going on with the polls and given the confidence in the Democratic side, will Donald Trump tonight attack Kamala Harris, Don Rickles style in the personal terms, or will he focus on the policy contrasts that the party has already started to put forward and some of her more left-wing positions that she took as a candidate in the 2020 cycle? So, Sean, you're very familiar with this question. What does Donald Trump, I hate to ask this because it's the question I always mock, but what does he need to do tonight in this Charlotte rally to try to take some of the mojo away from the Democrats?
I think there's 2 questions. What does he need to do and what will he do? And the will is, I think, a combination of both. He's going to talk about the leftist policies. He's going to bring up her record on immigration, on defunding the police and all that. And then he will, I'm sure, make some kind of, one-off comments. I think the bigger question is how much time does he spend doing that? Is it a one-off comment versus is it the overall narrative? I think that based on the gravity of the situation, the staff may impress upon him that the more he sticks to policy, the better. As you know, it doesn't matter what the staff briefs him on. We'll see. I mean, no one's going to answer that question until we hear what comes out of his mouth. But I guess it's probably going to be a 70-30 balance. And I don't know that it really matters. I don't know that anybody, this idea of like, what does he have to do? I don't think that anybody's going to go, wow, I saw him give a speech, and he seemed a lot more, therefore I'm voting for him. After 10 years, you're conditioned to who he is. And
right. But let me make this point. You look at Republicans on Capitol Hill, some of them have instantly verged into rhetoric that many people find offensive. Calling her a DI candidate, criticizing her personally, right? He's the leader of the party, right? Trump has got to set the tone and set the messaging. So isn't it important for him to lay down as quickly as possible in this sprint, 100-day plus sprint? Isn't it important for him to lay that down, Sean and then Tim? Like, here's how we're running against Kamala Harris, follow me, or does it matter?
I don't think it matters, number one. Number two, his view is, hey, I beat Hillary. I did it my way. I'm going to do it again my way.
Yeah. Tim, what do you think?
It is a very interesting point as to whether or not he leans into or talks about any of the really polarizing racist dog whistle language we've heard around DEI hire. I mean, you heard some Republicans talk about it yesterday, Speaker Johnson asking people to back away. But to Sean's point, no one's going to tell Donald Trump to say or not say something. So you're right. He does set the tone at the top of the ticket. Not that anyone was expecting we were going to have a continued unifying message going into this rally, but, he's called her lying Kamala, laughing Kamala. I don't think we have a name that sticks yet, so I don't know if he's going to road test that today. I think he will probably play some of his greatest hits that he knows he's more comfortable on the economy, on immigration. But I think they're still searching for their footing. I don't think they have a message. So maybe there's like some of the less of the Trump dicta in this rally of, sharks, batteries, electrocution, Hannibal Lecter, and he tries to throw out some more some stuff at the wall to see what sticks. But I think Trump's in the spot that Republicans are in, which is they just don't know. And we saw a little bit of expectation setting, I think, from his pollster yesterday in the Fabrizio memo that's like, Democrats are going to have a bump. We got to figure this out. I think Donald Trump's in that space too.
I also think the other thing is you're going to hear tonight this idea that this was subverting the will of the Democratic Party and undermining democracy. And I will go back to what I said. Like, first of all, everyone who's at a rally or watching already voting for Trump. We're not winning a single vote by saying that. But I think it's become this. I feel like everyone on the right wants to say, "Oh my God, look at these people talking about democracy and how they handle their thing." Like, again, who cares? Yeah. But that you're going to hear that theme over and over again tonight.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to. I would bet on
Sean,
that.
I want to draw on your Trump expertise. Like, The other side is raising tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions, $100 million. The other side is now getting all the favorable press coverage he craves. The other side is feeling buoyant. His own pollster saying we're going to be behind. Is Trump reacting to that with fear, with confusion, with determination? How do you think personally he reacts to this moment we're in?
I think part of it comes down to, and this is why I think, again, you're going to hear the retribution tonight, that this is ridiculous how this happened. She's taking all the money that was given to Joe. You'll hear the money come up. You're going to hear about how the process was undemocratic. He's going to be mad and pissed about the process. I think the pollsters, meaning Fabrizio and to some degree McLaughlin and those guys in Las Vegas, have conditioned him well to say, "Hey, this is the reality. Like this is going to happen. We expect it. This is how." And as long tonight, I wouldn't expect a big thing. I think a week from now, if you're seeing more and more polls, I think you're going to get a different Trump. Then he's going to go, DEI and personal a lot more when he feels like he has to avenge it. Tonight, I think they might have kept him in a decent place because they're setting enough expectations, saying, "Hey, look, this is what's happening. We all know this is how it's gonna play out. She's gonna bring in a lot of money, but it's a sugar high." I think if it sustains itself, you're gonna have a very difficult time seeing those same advisors keep him focused and contained. Tonight, maybe.
Well, but that sounds like bad news for Trump. Or you think don't underestimate Trump? Personal insults can bring him back to the White House.
I'm just saying, I think that Donald Trump he will go back to, I know better than all of you. I've done it before and I've been successful. And he's right about that.
Yeah.
And I think so, but I think that there is an argument that he could buy into this today and say, "Hey, today, don't go overboard. Don't take the bait. Let them have their moment. Let them have their sugar high." But if they prove to be wrong 10 days from now, we're seeing more polls where she continues to ascend. He's gonna say, "You guys were completely full of it."
Yeah. Which we will almost certainly if she picks a good running mate and has heads towards a good convention. Did you guys watch Vice President Harris's speech yesterday?
Yes.
Part of it.
I thought, again, it's a revelation how much better she is than she was in 2019 and how different her style plays now that she's the presidential nominee, presumptive, than when she was just the vice presidential candidate. I'm not sure she can keep it up, but if she stays on prompter like that, works the crowd after, I thought it was very strong. I'm curious what you guys thought.
Yeah, I thought she was focused. I mean,
right.
I think this idea of she had great one-liners, and the sort of the perfect storm. The press wanted to capitalize. I mean, kind of to your point about it was the perfect time to roll out these lines, and she was talking about her prosecuting the case. I know guys like that, and it was exactly what the base wanted to hear. You could see the excitement in the room, and you could see the press wanting to eat it up. So she hit it. I think you're right. How long does it sustain itself? We'll see. But it was a good coming out.
Yeah, it's like a perfect Democratic red meat speech. I mean, we got a contrast at the top, her prosecutor background with Donald Trump. She did economic messaging at the top, which we haven't heard a lot of. Very forward looking on what Trump's policy would be there and how it would just help millionaires and billionaires. And then we kind of got, the rundown of policy that Democrats want to hear. Paid family leave, childcare, protecting Social Security and Medicare, expanding healthcare, all the issues that we know poll well, but now have a voice that's got a lot of energy to speak to it, and really was just a different version of the Wilmington office speech in a larger setting, and it translated, and that was the big question, in my opinion.
By the way, I get a kick.
Mentioned 2025 too.
I get a kick. One of the comments continues to be, "The bar is very low. Read the prompter and sound presidential." And I gotta say, I mean, on both sides, it's like between Trump and Harris, the advice that we're all sort of saying, they need to hew to is just read what's in the prompter, and you could probably get elected. I think, I'm trying to read who wrote that, but it's kind of a sad state of being when that's the bar.
Yeah, I'll just say also, though, and Tim, I'm not accusing you of this. I think it's a mistake sometimes to assume that the issues agenda she talked about yesterday is a Democratic-based agenda. A lot of those issues test 70-30 or better, and they're not just for the base, they're for the independents. And that's a mistake the left makes about a lot of the issues Trump talks about. I want to talk about President Biden and his speech tonight. Obviously, there's a personal element to this for him, a legacy element. But in terms of the campaign, Tim, if Joe Biden's team, Donlin and others said, we want this speech to be as helpful as possible to the vice president and her chances of winning the presidential race, what kinds of things should he say to pull that off?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a couple of things that he has to say, right? It's still very fresh, the decision to step down, but I think there's got to be some explanation to the nation as to how he arrived at the decision that he arrived at. And then I think the balance for the remainder of the speech is, okay, so how much are we talking about the next 6 months versus the next 4 years? I think what he can do for Vice President Harris is to sort of reiterate what he was saying before, is I picked her for this job because I know that she can do this job. She could, step up and be president of the United States. I think he should talk about, I think he's actually in a place now where he is more able to talk about his legacy and some of the accomplishments of the administration without sometimes the awkward pivot of having to look forward and what's next. I'm not saying he's not going to do any of that. And look, it is just, it's still early since he made the decision. And I think they're still deciding what is his legacy. But I think we're going to start to see like inclinations of what they think that is in that speech tonight.
Look, I think I said this on my show. I said this on my Substack. I mean, like, he got away with not answering the why. Right. Read that letter and tell me why he's not running. It doesn't say LBJ when he made that video or that, recorded remarks in March of 1968 said very clearly, because of the war and my desire to stay focused on it, this is why I have to do what I have to do. Biden just said, hey, we've had a good 3.5 years. Peace out, Biden.
Right.
I think we want to hear that. I don't know that he got a pass on the letter when it really mattered. I think tonight he's really going to try to define his legacy. And I think the balance to me is going to be how much does he spend on him and how much does he spend on her? How long it goes is another thing. Because but I hate to say this. I don't know that anyone cares. I feel like it's like we've already put him in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, I hear you. All right. I want to say 3 things about Barack Obama. Or about Barack and Michelle Obama, and then your questions. Noah, our producer, is going to run the Q&A today because of where I am. But raise your hand if you want to get in on the conversation, question, or comment. Again, two-way is a platform for learning, for understanding, peace, love, and understanding. So as always, we're looking for people who want to contribute to the conversation in a way that is bipartisan, nonpartisan, and extends the presumption of grace to everybody. And we're going to get Megan in for sure because she's got her hand up. 3 things. One, I reported last Thursday, some of you know, that this change was coming. I believe now, I have some reason to believe these are 3 intriguing points. They're not hard, but they're things for you to think about. I think it's possible that Team Obama was engineering the transition from Biden to Harris earlier than it's currently known. Number 2, we're still waiting to see if David Plouffe comes into this campaign. There's some concern in Wilmington, but also some desire to have in there. If David Plouffe comes in, I really do think it increases her chances of winning by a lot. The team that's there now has had a lot of success in some ways, but they don't have anybody quite like him, and that'll be interesting to see. And then finally, I just raised the question. We all expected and expect Michelle Obama to speak at the convention in Chicago. I wonder whether she'll speak at Kamala Harris's convention. We shall see. So I'll turn it over to Noah. Noah, over to you to bring folks in.
Hey, Megan, do you want to start?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I just I wanted to say something really quick to Sean and Mark and you, Tim, that I brought up, I think, last week. I went to dinner last night with some friends who are all hyper-conservative women, like women who have worked in leadership for Republicans, women who work for Fox News, women who work for like think tanks and conservative circles, like hardcore conservative women. And the number one thing everyone is talking about on my social media and at dinner is JD Vance's comments about single catless women. And some of my friends have had fertility issues. Some of my friends have done rounds of IVF that have been unsuccessful. This comment, I saw Mayor Pete talking about it yesterday. I raised this flag a week ago, and I said, you cannot win elections without women and without single women. And the fact that some of my most hardcore conservative women are upset, are saying things like, I want to be a mother. It hasn't happened for me. I personally have 2 children, thank God, but I've had miscarriages. I think this is actually going to be a real problem, given that the counter candidate is a woman. And obviously Democrats are intelligent enough to drive home the message of like, it's okay if you tried to have a child and you haven't been able to, you're okay on our side. I think that messaging is garbage. And then you see Harry Enton yesterday talking about how the non-bump JD Vance got out of the convention, that he's a -6 approval rating. I actually think I continue to say this is going to be a real problem. And not just in like my Virginia bubble. I have girlfriends who live in Phoenix, and I have girlfriends. My sister lives in Wisconsin. This is going to be an issue for women, period. Like, it doesn't matter which area of the country. I refuse to believe this is just an elite thing. And I just don't understand this messaging that if you are single or childless, you have no place in the Republican Party. And last final thing, that one of the topics that was brought up was, why is the Republican Party turning into a trad wife party where we are fiscally liberal and socially conservative and becoming more socially conservative? And I just think this is gonna be an issue. Fertility is a wildly sensitive subject for all women, but particularly American women.
Megan, thank you for bringing it up. I meant to bring it up today. It was on my list. Just there's so much going on, but I couldn't agree with you more. I've heard from a ton of people. And I think, so there's the narrow issue of that old quote and the fact that he hasn't addressed it yet. I think I'll have to. But there's also the broader issue of whether he was a good pick or not. There were lots of sources of mine and others who were very skeptical that he was a good pick for a lot of reasons, including that he's young and untested, and he says things that are, and has said things that are potentially problematic. And whether the convention would have gotten a bounce under other circumstances in his pick, we don't know, because there's just too much going on. But I think he's gonna. You don't want your running mate to be a problem. You want him to be neutral or a plus, and I think potentially now, for the reason you said and others, he's potentially a problem. Sean.
So I will just say, I've got the chat up as we discussed, and I don't know that there's any scientific viability to it, but I think Megan is definitely winning the chat room here. So I don't know if
Megan in general is a fan favorite, but I think she's right on.
But I mean, my point is that I don't know the backgrounds of any of these people, but I mean, clearly it's something that's an issue. I know this is going to sound very odd to respond to this in a weird way, but I think if you've looked at how President Trump has responded to the issue of Roe, meaning that he understands, you may not agree with how he's responding, send it back to the state, but I think he's clearly aware of the issue, the potency of the issue. And so I don't know that his answer will make Megan or any of the people that she dined with or in her feed or any people in the chat better. But I do think the reason I say that is I believe that they at least are cognizant of these issues: IVF, Roe versus Wade, access to care. I mean, like they get it. And again, I think there's two separate issues. Do they get it, and do they respond appropriately and correctly? I don't know that you can have one and not the other, but I would just say I do believe that there's a recognition of the potency of the issue.
Jim, how many cats do you have?
Yeah, I will say it's I do not own a cat. I do not own a cat. It was an open question. I think, this obviously something that came out as he was being announced as vice president, but how much it would really swirl in the media ecosystem. But to Megan's point, people are talking about it. I've seen it on cable and covered over the last few days pretty greatly. And I think it's just a huge question of so is there no place for this part of your coalition that is conservative single women or conservative women without children? And, I've said it before, JD Vance's career is kind of like an inflammatory pontificator, and that's what gets you in trouble when you say things like this. And the internet's forever, although I think this was said on television. Television's also forever. So it's a huge problem for them. I don't think they have an answer.
Yeah, Megan, thank you. And this, to me, if Kelly turns out to be the pick, he turns out to be as good as a lot of people think he will. The contrast in judgment, if the judgment, again, that's why VP matters. If you pick somebody and it shows good judgment, that reflects on the top of the ticket. If it turns out that the judgment for the press and maybe some Republicans is Trump chose poorly and Harris chose well, that gives her a leg up in a really key dimension. Noah.
Mr. Kelly?
I'm just curious, what miracle did I miss that Kamala Harris is now considered a competent candidate? It was a week ago that it was a given, not only by the pros, but everybody, that, she's deeply flawed and had all kinds of issues. And
she raised more than $100 million. That's a good candidate just for that one metric.
Well, yeah, I understand, but I mean, we kind of haven't we passed that hurdle? I mean, what's his name? Trump was raising money in a day like that. I don't know if that's the key factor. I don't know. Is that why? Wasn't Biden convinced that she could not win? And I'm also still stumped by a week ago, all the pros were saying 99% chance that Biden was going to remain the nominee. You teased something really interesting, Mark, Obama having a role in this. this is the kind of thing that I think, journalists like you, and you are, but the mainstream media should be doggedly pursuing. And they're so ready to move on and cheerlead Kamala and ignore everything that happened, because it was understood. If $100 million rehabilitated her, okay, I guess I can get that, but it doesn't seem.
Greg, did you watch your speech yesterday, Greg?
I did, actually, and I disagree with you. I thought her giddiness was unseemly. It was actually like she had won $100 million for herself. She didn't seem. I didn't watch all of it, but I was taken aback by just her enthusiasm. Like, it was over the top.
So
And we all know that her enthusiasm
Greg,
can be over the top.
Can I just go to comment? I keep going back to this and hat tip Tim Hogan on this, but I think there's a combination. It may not be excitement about Kamala Harris, and that's where I think we're mistaking some of this. But Tim's analogy several days ago, that this is a person who drove up in the middle of the rain and said, "Get into my dry car." And I think that that's resonating a lot, which is they may not be excited about Kamala. They're just, hey, thank God Joe stepped aside and fill in the blank name. Like, they're excited it's someone new, and it's someone that they can at least legitimately say.
No question. But John, don't underestimate how many people are excited about her on
No. But I'm saying
on abortion. Some people,
fine.
you're right, but some people are super psyched about her.
She was always VP. I mean, like, there's nothing new. I mean, I think Greg's point is nothing's new, that we don't have any new information from when Joe Biden dropped out to when she came in, where she articulated. The first speech she gave was yesterday. I think a lot of this now, people may come to love her, but there's nothing that happened in the intervening moments for people to suddenly love her more than they did or didn't. I think what happens is that we had a lot of people that were very, very worried, especially on the left, about Biden's fitness for office and mental acuity. He stepped aside and they said exactly what Tim articulated, which is, thank God, we owe it now to rally around whomever this person is. And it's Kamala Harris. Now, they may find an attribute that they like more than ever now. Hey, it's a female. She articulated a position on crime that I've always thought was great, whatever it is. But they didn't know that a little while ago. And my point is, I think that Greg's right. But it's also like, yes, that's the reality. The media was like, cool, we're moved on. And that's why I think tonight's speech is sort of like a nothing burger, because at this point, he's in the rearview mirror. Like it or not, I think there's a ton of great questions. But I almost feel like it's the assassination attempt, in the sense that this should be a major issue, that a president of the United States was almost assassinated. We're seeing colossal failures at all levels, and it's barely registering on the news. Why? Because it's sort of like, oh, that was last week.
Just really quickly on Harris and like expectations. I know Republicans want to say, well, this is who she was in 2019. I think there is a difference between Kamala Harris in the 29-person primary in 2019 and her as the candidate for president on the Democratic ticket. And I think just part of that positioning changes her appeal, changes the way that she's approaching this. And just for the record, $126 million. So the number is still going.
Yes, still going. Noah, go ahead, bring somebody else in, please.
Ronnie.
Thank you, Mark. Love the content, love the format. Gets better and better every day. But we don't talk a whole lot about this transition to the digital age, which you're absolutely a leading edge of here. Everything is happening faster than it's ever happened before. We've looked at these news cycles. I hate to even use the word assassination attempt, but so many things have happened in the last 10 and 15 days since I met you guys. This morning, Kamala does not have a functioning website, does not have anything that resembles her position, her platform in anything other than Twitter. And if you read what she's putting out on Twitter, it is so generic, so shallow, except that it does seem that the first thing she's going to lead with is everybody should be in a union. And I just paraphrase that my way. Modern unions means everything costs more, our economy is less competitive, everything takes longer. And the number one issue, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. Didn't interrupt you. Go ahead.
So the number one issues that we're dealing with.
By the way, Ronnie, real quick, there's a woman in the chat, Beth, is saying that KamalaHarris.com is actually active. I don't know if that's, I'm just.
So I was on it this morning. Yes, you can give money. So
yeah,
when you go there, all it is give me money. It did have some more things.
I would also argue, look, I agree with you. And this gets kind of like is tangential to what Greg Kelly was talking about. It's like, wake up and watch the Today Show, Good Morning America, or CNN. They don't care. They're carrying the water. Read playbook. It's literally like they're like, got it. We got it. We got you. We will take care of
It
it.
is billions. It is billions of dollars in support of Kamala Harris right now on television and liberal media. It's billions of dollars, and they
No, I
don't care.
believe she's-
As Sean just said, they don't care if she's got a functioning website. They don't care.
So I believe she's wasting that period, that money, that spend, all of that free because she doesn't have a message.
Ronnie, I hear you, but I will say, I think it's a miracle how quickly, and this is why part of why my suspicion is this started earlier than we know. I think it's a miracle that they're up and running, transitioning away from the incumbent president to get her on the road, doing events, swapping her husband in for Jill Biden for some of these fundraisers. It is a miracle that they figured out how to keep this going, and they haven't had very many errors under the circumstances. That's quite something. And the fact that the websites haven't crashed and taking in all this money, that they're now dealing with the big fat cat donors, I think it's impressive how they're going, and I think they've got a lot to do, and that's why bringing in Pluff would make such a huge difference, because they would take some of the pressure off of Jen O'Malley, Dylan, and off of others.
Healthcare.gov took months and crashed. I mean, I agree with Mark. The idea that they're making this transition in a 96-hour, 72-hour is in itself like a big deal. Look.
So what's the message? Who is she? Who is Kamala?
She's not Donald Trump. I think that's primarily the message. She's not Donald Trump. She's the person who's going to say, I'm going to spare you 4 more years of this guy's drama, this guy's extremism, this guy's trying to eliminate reproductive freedom, and this guy's failure to understand democracy. That's, I think, what her message is going to be. If you want to understand her message and you haven't read Hillary Clinton's New York Times op-ed, I think it's the best distillation of where I think the Harris campaign is headed that I've seen. Sean, Noah, bring somebody else, please. Thank you for the question.
Sandra, are you there?
Okay, I'm Sandra, middle of the road Democrat from Pennsylvania who wouldn't give the Democratic Party a cent before because I was upset about Joe Biden even coming again and running. I now have given to Kamala Harris, and the end. We could all talk about this, but what Mark said is that in the end, I will vote for Kamala Harris because she is not Donald Trump. Case closed.
And she's not Joe Biden.
What do you like about her?
But she's also not Joe Biden.
Now, I talked to you.
What do you like? What do you like most about? What do you like most about her?
The speech that she gave, that she just gave. If she can keep that up, that is good. I'm really not. And the thing I think she has to address is the border, because that has me upset. That has me upset. She's got to talk about the border.
Yeah.
I
think
how much?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tim.
No, I was going to say, I think there are some good answers there. I mean, we've seen a rapid decline recently after the executive order. They have a bipartisan immigration bill. To Mark's, favorite VP pick could be Mark Kelly, and help bolster that question. So I think there's ways to alleviate that concern and address that question. But to your point, yes, this is it's yeah. You're pouring your hopes and dreams of stopping Donald Trump to Kamala Harris. She gives a good standard Democratic platform stump speech yesterday. That's a bar.
And I do try to understand those that are for Donald Trump. I think this platform is wonderful. I do. But me personally and JD Vance, yay that they picked him. Yay. That's all I have to say.
How much did you give to Kamala Harris?
How much? Are you ready?
Yeah.
A big $15.
Love it.
Okay. And are you going to give more?
In past Democratic elections, I have given every month, small amount every month.
Yeah.
I didn't click that every month.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because I'm on a fixed income. I'm retired, so
and because of inflation, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
It's true.
It's
true, Sean.
My Republican friends would say, said you didn't click the box because of Biden-Harris inflation.
No.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Lots of impact there. Thank you for sharing that. Noah, go ahead.
Or James?
Yeah. First, I want to thank Mark because I've been learning a lot on these calls over the last few weeks, and I've been a fan of you since the days of the note. So I'm glad to see you doing this and glad to be able to contribute.
Thank you for being part of it.
Just want to say a quick thing. You know, I know people are maybe a little puzzled. I don't think that Kamala Harris would have ever shot out this
James, I got
sort
James,
of played
James,
out.
James, I'm sorry
Kamala.
to interrupt you, but I thank you.
Kamala.
Go ahead.
Kamala.
Go ahead. Thank you.
This never would have unfolded the way that it has if not for this Shakespearean tragedy of Biden. It's because there was a vacuum and because there was so much terror every time one of his supporters or anyone on the left was watching him speak and watching what we were heading into. And then there's a solution. She doesn't have to be perfect. She just has to deliver the message. And we're seeing that she can. So all of the enthusiasm isn't necessarily about her. It's just tremendous amount of engagement and passion to beat Trump. On that note, I have a question given what's going on today for you guys. How much can she plausibly distance herself between Biden on Gaza, particularly since she's still going to be part of his administration until Election Day? And what has she said so far that gives you an inkling of what she might say going forward?
Yeah. One thing I would say there is what I hearken back to in terms of Israel Gaza from Harris is the speech that she gave on a weekend at Edmund Pettus Bridge, where she called for a ceasefire. And the way that it was couched is that it wasn't a huge deviation from administration policy, but the way that it was presented, I think bought her a lot of goodwill from the Democratic side, or from folks who are lean towards, why is there not more of a call for an immediate ceasefire? So I think she has some goodwill there. Yeah, and it's an open question. I mean, like, how different is the Harris policy there than the Biden policy? But I actually think she's in decent position.
James, thank you. We got to go. We already ran over, and I apologize for that. But great conversation and great contributions from everybody. Appreciate it. We love you on this platform, whether on YouTube or here on Two-Way. We're grateful to you. We'll be back at our regular time tomorrow, 9 Eastern time. I may be back tonight for a Two-Way after the president's speech. We'll see. It'll somewhat be based, unfortunately, on my travel logistics. But we will see you soon, and we're very grateful to you for participating in Two-Way. Have a great day, everybody.